All right, today's lesson is lesson 3.6, which is multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. The last lesson we did was adding and subtracting fractions. So today we're going to talk about what to do when we multiply fractions. So the first thing I have for you to do is to write down some notes. And the first notes you need to write down, or the only notes you'll need to write down, is this rule. To multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators to find the product of the numerator, then multiply the denominator to find the product's denominator. Okay, so to multiply fractions, multiply the numerators, then multiply the denominators. That is all we really need to do. Now, I know that the title of the chapter says multiplying fractions and mixed numbers, so we'll talk about that, but really what we're going to do is we're going to take any mixed number, turn it into a fraction, and then multiply fractions. So, get your notes down, and then we're going to do example 1A. So the first example we have is negative 15 times 2 over 3. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put 15 into a fraction. So any whole number over 1 is equal to that whole number, because negative 15 divided by 1 is negative 15. We're going to multiply that by 2 over 3. So if we look back at our notes and look at our rule, we know that when we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators, then we multiply the denominators. So we just multiply straight across. So 15 times 2 is going to be negative 30, because we have this negative over here, and 1 times 3 is 3. Now we should probably simplify that. So 3 goes into 30 how many times? You are right, it goes into 10 times. So our answer is going to be negative 10. Now the book shows you another way to simplify this problem. The book shows you that you can simplify before you multiply. So you can see here that you can cancel this 3 out because it goes into this number 5 times. So this becomes a 1, and we can multiply that out, and we have negative 5 times 2, which is negative 10 over 1, which equals negative 10. Me personally, I think it is easier to simplify after you have multiplied, but you can do it either way, whichever you are more comfortable with. So let's go to example 1B. So we have two fractions. We have 1/4, and we are multiplying that by 4/5. Now you can see that there's something that will simplify right away, and that is this 4. You can simplify that down to a 1 and a 1, and we get 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, over 1 times 5 is 5. Now if you want to check to make sure you did that right, we could do it the other way and go 1 over 4 times 4 over 5, multiply those straight across. So 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 5 is 20, and then we would simplify this. we know that 4 goes into 20 5 times, and it goes into 4 one time. So 1 over 5 is how we would simplify that down. So these problems are really not that hard. It's more just doing the work, doing the multiplying, and then doing the simplifying. So let's do one more in the example 1 section. So example 1C is 3 over 4 times negative 1 over 2. And if we multiply that out, we have 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3, over 4 times 2, which is 8. And if we look at that number, 3 does not go into 8, therefore we cannot simplify that any smaller. So our answer would just be negative 3 over 8. So all of those problems were just multiplying fractions. In example 2a, we have a mixed number, and a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. So we have 8, and we're going to multiply 8 by 2 and 3/4. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to turn both of these into fractions. Well, we know that 8 is equivalent to 8 over 1. Now, how do we turn a whole number and a fraction, or a mixed number, into a fraction? Well, we multiply our denominator by our whole number, so 4 times 2 is 8. Then we add our numerator, so 8 plus 3 is 11 over 4. If we multiply that out, we get 88 over 4. Now we can simplify this into a whole number, because 4 goes into 88 how many times? Well, you can set it up like this. 4 goes into 8 2 times, 4 goes into 8 2 times. So we know 88 over 4 is going to equal 22. You could also simplify your fractions and look at this and go, well, 4 will go into 8 2 times, and 2 times 11 is 22. 1 times 1 is 1, and 22 over 1 is going to equal 22. Either way, we end up with the same number. Okay, so let's do one more problem with mixed numbers. So if we skip down to 2C, we have 3 and 3/5 times 1 and 1/12. We need to turn both of these mixed numbers into fractions. So remember, we multiply our denominator by our whole number. So 5 times 3, which is 15, and then we add our numerator. So 15 plus 3 is 18 over 5. We're going to multiply that by 12 times 1, so denominator times the whole number, which is 12, plus 1, so that's 13 over 12. Now we're left with some pretty big numbers right now. But we can simplify before we multiply to help us out with the multiplication. If you look at 18 and 12, what is their common denominator? What is one number that goes into both of those? And the answer to that is going to be 6. So 6 goes into 18 3 times, and 6 goes into 12 2 times. This makes it easier for us to multiply across. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 13 times 3 is, 3 times 3 is 9, 39. So 39 over 10. Now we can leave it as in fraction form, or we can turn it into a mixed number. So how many times does 10 go into 39? 10 goes into 39 3 times. So we have 3 whole numbers. That leaves us with a 9. Okay, so if we turn that fraction into a mixed number, we end up with 3 9/10. Now, I don't know if your homework is going to request you to do that. If it does say simplest form, it is going to want you to put that into a mixed number, the simplest form. But if it does not ask for that, which it looks like every problem is asking you to put it in simplest form. Okay, there is no think and discuss question for this section. So, with that said, you can move on to your homework.